Okay, guys, in this episode, we're going to be dealing with two questions this time. Okay, they're a little bit shorter, so I thought I'd pack them in so the episode wouldn't be too short. Okay, the two questions are going to be: do you know your potential acquirers? Do they have a history of making acquisitions? And secondly, are there many buyers for this? Now, if you want to know the answers to these questions, stick with me right now, and then we'll get into them.
Ask Alex. Ask Alex. Because you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, now you know.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, let's do the first one now. So you're pitching a VC, and the VC says, do you know your potential acquirers? And do they have a history of making acquisitions? So what does investor mean when they say this? We've dealt with questions like this a little bit similar before. In asking this question, the investor is not only asking who you think your potential acquirers are, but do they actually buy startups? You'll need to have some industry knowledge, insider industry knowledge probably too, to be able to answer this question, and very well. I don't know is basically a flag that you're new to the industry. So if you've been pretending like you know what you're talking about, this is a great way to be found out, okay? By the way, it's fine if you are a newbie to the industry, but please do some homework so you actually know what you're talking about so that you become credible, right? It may be cool you come from an outsider perspective or something, but do some homework, okay? So, do you know the market? Have you talked to competitors? All right, clarity yes would be a good answer to all the above, right? Would you rather invest in a founder who is a deep industry insider or Johnny no mates, right? Acquisitions, as I said before, are engineered. They don't hop over the transom via email, as we discussed in I think the last episode, right? Relationships, okay, they're helpful in this regard, right? Maybe you worked at some big company before, or you know a lot of people because you used to do BD, business development, right? Investors are testing your knowledge. Who has bought whom? If you say some banks are likely acquirers, but they have never acquired anyone, then you're talking bullcrap, right? Why are they going to start buying now? Do you know? Timing matters. If you say Google and they just bought your direct competitor, why would be in the market to buy you now too? Doing acquisitions of direct competitors removes a potential acquirer from your acquisition pool, right? Your acquirer pool. Though it also may elicit Me Too behavior, as competitors think they need to have a competitive offering as well, and that kind of gets the whole thing going. So maybe someone buying someone in industry whilst removing an option for you to sell them to might actually encourage everyone else to start thinking that they need to do that too. So that can be beneficial, right? So maybe you can chuck in an angle around that. A lot of acquisitions happen in your space is actually pretty positive, right? Say you're an AI, you could say that there have already been 20 acquisitions this year, and it's a hot era, and the big three are hoovering up all the talent. DeepMind was an example of that. It's basically just a string of nerds with sort of loose employment agreements, hadn't really done anything, but there were a bunch of nerds in there, and so thank you very much, whatever it was, 400 billion or something, they just basically did an acqui-hire. So we have a great team, so we are clearly attractive, even just for an acqui-hire is actually an option, right? But this question is an opportunity for you to establish credibility. If you've been modest to date, then it's time to pull out your big guns and do some good old-fashioned name and knowledge dropping, right? So what do you need to say? Well, you ideally need to have reached out to the buyers about a biz dev deal or to get some knowledge. Of course, this is not always possible, but it makes sense. It de-risks the deal a lot if you kind of know what's kind of going on, right? You also need to do some basic research about their acquisition history to make anything that you say actually sensible. So you might say something, for example, like, we reached out to 3 of the mid-sized players in our space, but I've only got to chat to one person at Zenefits. We couldn't get the other 2 yet. Mary, CMO, does a lot of talks and was on a panel with our CMO once. We'd actually love your help on this if you were to invest, actually, to kind of reach out a little bit more. I know that you know some of these guys. The top 5 guys on our buy list have, a history of buying. Zenefits bought X, Y, and Zen Payroll acquired Y. They've all raised a lot of money recently, so imagine in future they'll have, dry powder to buy us. Now, we aren't interested in 20 million acquisition though, as we see the opportunity far larger in the future. So, it's good to kind of know that there's interest in people, but frankly, things happen over time, and as we become larger, we'll sort of establish exactly what the story is here. But, if you can, help us reach out to more of these people and get them to respond to our calls, that'd be really cool. Thanks a lot, Jim, whatever. Okay. Next question, guys. Are there many buyers for this? So what does the investor mean? Right? You set up your startup to solve a problem for a bigger company than you to get bought. Cover that in the first episode of the exit questions, right? It's not really about solving a customer problem, as we talked about. It's about solving a problem for someone big who has money, right? But implicitly here, the investor has an element of skepticism in his tone or with the wording he's used, right? Investors may have accepted the premise that someone would buy you. They just aren't exactly sure who they are and if there's actually many or enough of them. But more fundamentally, at the stage of your development, you may need to pitch your value more and communicate that you really are solving a problem large enough that is big enough for someone to want you, right? Market size matters. Perhaps you haven't gotten to a point in the meeting where you have communicated how you're going to expand into new verticals to make you even bigger. You communicated you are focused, but perhaps on too small a niche, and you haven't shared the bigger vision, right? You might just want to pause and say, look, Jim, to be clear, we have a larger vision. We've only shared a little of it to show that we're focused and we're not really confused. We don't want to confuse you too much too, since this is our first meeting, right? We can start simple and, cover more over time. So look, we start with the market for black cabs in San Francisco, but we see the greater market as being the market for mobility. Now, once we reframe it, I think it becomes clear that there is a larger market for acquirers. Now, investors want to make sure you believe there is a pool of potential buyers. Otherwise, they may never get the money back. If there's only one potential acquirer and they buy a competitor, then suddenly the only option you have is going to be to IPO, right? Which doesn't really happen often, and it's frankly like a huge pain in the ass. So what do you need to say to answer this question? Well, of course there are, guys, seriously. If we achieve our mission of making our customers delighted, then why wouldn't someone want all these happy, paying, repeat customers? We see 3 categories of buyers. The first one is banks, the second one is payment gateways, and then we have, thirdly, the service companies. All in all, we've managed to map out 35 buyers in these different categories across 4 different countries. The driving factor is a combination of our mobile-first stack, as well as the massive customers and the data we generate. So sure, we are starting just with one value proposition due to developer resources, right? We're kind of bootstrapped here. But in the later stages, we will achieve that fuller vision of a full true stack, and we think potentially all 35 would come running. And who doesn't want to have a bidding war? Okay, guys, that's the end of this installment with those 2 questions. If you want to listen more, hit the next button and see the next episode, or check it out on the podcast. If you like this, feel free to share it with your friends. It'd be much appreciated. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.